All right, let's wrap up chapter 15 with how special senses work together. All right, so our special senses: hearing, vision, taste, smell, equilibrium. There we go. Uh, do not function in isolation. They collect and report information simultaneously, so multiple regions of the brain can integrate information into a coherent picture of the situation that is occurring. Receptors detect and transduce stimuli from various special sense organs. Our eyes see it, our ears hear it, our taste tastes it, our smell smells it. Cranial nerves then transmit the electrical or neural signals to the central nervous system. Those neural signals are then relayed through the thalamus, with the exception of olfaction. Olfaction does not pass through the thalamus, goes directly uh, from the sense organs of the epithelial, the olfactory epithelium, into those regions of the brain that interpret olfaction. Everything else goes through the thalamus. Uh, First event that has to occur is we have to be aware that uh, some sense is being detected. That occurs in the primary sensory cortices. And again, cortices is the plural of the word cortex. The frontal lobe and the limbic system integrate the special senses into a coherent picture of the situation. The limbic system provides appropriate, well, hopefully appropriate, emotional response and documents associate memories. Again, if smelling bread baking takes you back to your childhood and you remember mom and grandma making cakes and pies for Christmas or Thanksgiving, that's an emotional response. That's in the limbic system. What can happen in the limbic system is, and we see this in times of stress, uh, mixed signals. Again, uh, sometimes you will know people will laugh at inappropriate times, laughing at a funeral, for no particular, no apparent reason. Uh, that is where there is a mix-up of some sort going on in the limbic system. Something is happening, and we are getting an inappropriate emotional response to some external stimuli. And again, those usually come up during stress. But again, here is the sensory input. Here is smell. Again, bypasses the thalamus, goes directly down through the olfactory nerve, through the olfactory tract, into the portions of the brain, and then ultimately to the frontal lobe. Then taste goes through the brain stem, then in through the thalamus, ultimately again going into the cortices found in the frontal lobe, also in the limbic system. Vision, you have rods and cones for seeing black and white and color vision. Again, optic nerve into the thalamus, uh, goes through the medulla oblongata of the brain, and again, ultimately signals sent to the frontal lobe and the limbic system. Uh, Hearing, again, there's those stereocilia with the kinocilia on the hair cell. Again, these signals go through the brain stem, excuse me, then patched through the thalamus into the temporal lobe of the brain. I think I misspoke on this one. That's the medial occipital lobe. Then we get, so I apologize for that. Hearing then goes through the temporal lobe, and again, ultimately into the frontal lobe and the limbic system. And then finally, our vestibular sense of balance goes through the brain stem, into the thalamus, into the parietal lobe, where the signals are then sent to the limbic system and the frontal lobe for processing. All of these systems work together. Again, there are some conflicting ideas about brain evolution that say this, since it does not involve the thalamus at all, and the signals go down here to the inferior orbital lobe of the brain, then this must be a very ancient sense, whereas Some of these other ones must be a more modern sense because they are involving parts of the brain that not all organisms have. In other words, there are organisms, there are animals that have a sense of taste, they have a sense of vision, they have a sense of hearing, but they may not have a thalamus to speak of. Reptiles, for instance, reptiles have a very reduced thalamus. Some of them don't have a thalamus at all. But yet they still have these things. Human beings have thalamus, we have brain stems, we have more ability to interpret and analyze and associate things. All right, that wraps up chapter 15. I've had a great time this semester, everyone. Hope to see you again, either in microbiology or if I get cast to teach an A&P2 class. Have a wonderful time. Your final exam will be up on Blackboard on the appropriate day. Everyone have a good time off.